Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast day, and thanks for tuning in. Joining me today is Tiffani Murray from Haverty's Furniture. So they're a SAP SuccessFactors customer using Employee Central and Employee Central Payroll. Tiffani and I first met a few years ago when they were evaluating payroll options. She already has a tremendous amount of experience with SAP SuccessFactors, and she's led the digital transformation for many different organizations, including some well-known household brands. We both live in Atlanta, and Tiffani, I still remember meeting in our first conversation when you were asking questions about EC payroll. And now look how much things have changed, both from a payroll standpoint as well as with the world in 2020. But now Tiffani's someone that's a friend and that I enjoy talking to about HR, payroll, as well as real life stuff too. But I suppose for today, we'll stick with HR and payroll, okay? Thanks for joining me, Tiffani.
No, sounds great. I'm happy to be here, and it is funny to think back to where we were, when you and I first met out, out in person in public, and how we've shifted with 2020, and we've come a long way, and taken the good and the bad, and make something of it for this year. And I'm excited to be on the podcast and to chat with you, and thankful for our friendship, and but also love kind of just having a exchange with you about all things HRIS.
Yeah, for sure. And I certainly have that same appreciation. I always enjoy talking to you, and I always learn something. So it's a good thing for, all around. Anyways, so you all were previously already live with Employee Central for your core HR, and now recently you went live with Employee Central Payroll. So congratulations first and foremost. But the crazy thing with your project is that everything happened right around the time of the pandemic, right? Right during your planned go live and right when you had that scheduled. So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, I imagine there are a lot, but what are the challenges you faced? Did you go from working on site to remote, and how was that?
Yeah, I mean, it was almost the perfect storm as it relates to a payroll implementation. I have, peers and a former manager, had all given me, this is pre-pandemic, had given me advice about, how a payroll implementation can go right and how it can go wrong. And, none of them said, and then there'll be a virus, and you have to, stop in your tracks. And
Right.
it was phenomenally challenging in the sense that, the project had been chugging along, as you and I had chatted. We had an implementation partner, and we had progressed, and we were working through all the various phases of an implementation. And we got to kind of that, March timeframe, and we had done a good deal of the parallel testing, and our implementation partner, Aspire HR, had been out, and then things, the bottom dropped out. It was things were starting to shut down. It was like, the early stages, but it was happening. And it was when our implementation partner, made the very correct decision to say, like, we're not traveling anymore, but we're going to support you. We're going to do this remote. And at the same time, we as a business, Haverty, we had to really think about, what we were going to do. And so we had decided to also close our retail and distribution locations. And this is all in the stage of, coming out on the tail end of parallel testing. And so we had to really shift very quickly to, a remote implementation right as we were about to head into the go live.
Oh my goodness. I can only imagine how much of a change that was. And I have to think that people on the team were very concerned at the time, right? And wondering, how will this all happen with the timeline that we've already set forth? I'm sure they were starting to get comfortable with it, but it's still a new product and a change from what they're used to. Plus, at that point, we really had no idea what the future had in store, right? We might have thought like, well, it'll be just a few weeks or maybe a month or something. So there's so much uncertainty. And I think we all have certain plans and are used to working with people that are right next to you every day, especially with that type of a project, and you're comfortable walking over to someone's desk. And so the entire project team and all the key stakeholders that need to talk to each other are routinely in the same room, and communication is easy. And so going away from that's quite challenging. So from your standpoint, what was the key to adjusting on the fly overnight and still being able to go live successfully and on time?
Wow, it's a great question. I mean, you're correct. There was so much uncertainty, even when we all went to work from home. It was, well, maybe this will be a couple weeks or a few weeks or
Right.
4 weeks. Either way, though, for us, we knew the way that our payroll cycles are staggered. It was looking pretty much like we'd have to go live at least with some part of the project remotely. And so collaboration was key. And our work culture, our office is highly collaborative under normal circumstances, to the point of, I call it a walk-up environment.
Right.
You mentioned, I've worked for multiple different organizations in this space, and I've seen all different types of work cultures, and Haverty is, definitely close knit, kind of, people go walk up and down the stairs and just go talk to someone, right? And so that was definitely probably the biggest change. And collaboration on any type of implementation is key. And so we had to shift, from this idea that, oh, I can just go walk downstairs and talk to this person, and just, make that shift to, okay, let's schedule a Teams meeting. Let's make sure we get on the phone. And then also with the implementation partner, making sure that they're in the loop. And so we had, at a certain point, we put daily stand-up calls in place. And so that was something that was highly effective. And then we also have a unique situation where we work with another partner, Whitaker Taylor, on our other talent modules within SuccessFactors. So they were engaged as well. Getting everybody on the same page was very important. Even if there were some time zone differences, we worked around that as well. And so, highlighting those issues ahead of those phone calls and those Teams meetings, making sure we were addressing things quickly, so that we had, a seamless implementation. Look, I'm gonna be candid. Sure, we had some what those out there in the audience will know, red project days, right? where things were red, but I don't know too many implementations that don't have some red, in a red, yellow, green world where there's no red days. I want to find that project. But in the end, we came out green. So, in the end, we were able to pull it off.
I'd probably be most concerned about a project that's always green, right? You always have certain things, and the biggest challenge is you don't know what you don't know in some cases. And so, if you don't run across any road bumps, then I'm a little concerned about that, quite honestly. But on top of all of that, with payroll, just because you're doing a project and you're implementing a new system, that doesn't change the fact that your people still need to be paid, right? So you could say that during that time frame, payroll team is really working two jobs. One, on the project, learning this whole new system and how to do it, and then they have to do testing. You mentioned parallel testing, so comparing the old system to the new one. But then on top of that, they have to continue with their regular jobs, right? Their regular duties to pay people. So I'm sure that was also a big challenge. And then you add in the impact that things like shelter in place, and now your HR team has to make big, large-scale changes to your system. So tell me a little bit, what was that like?
I will raise my hand and say, payroll is not, my highest area of expertise. I've got to take my hat off, and I can't speak more highly of our payroll team, because they did exactly that. They were actually designated as, essential personnel, which in the state of Georgia, you could have some workers who, if they needed to travel to go to the office during the shutdown, and so they did that to perform their normal payroll duties, and at the same time preparing for, completing the testing as it related to ECP. I know just from observation and from talking to them, it was a whirlwind. It was a whirlwind for all of us, but I know especially for them, just being faced with, processing and then the project. And look, I left this part out, and it's public information. We did have to do some workforce changes and some furloughs, as many in the retail industry had to do.
Right.
And guess who was managing that, right? It was HR and payroll. And so they also were, standing up to that, as as something else that was going on at the same time. So I'm proud of the collective work that we did, both on the project, but also on, as we navigated this new normal from a people perspective.
Yeah, you should be proud. I mean, it's no small undertaking, and then you add in those multiple complex challenges, and it's quite an accomplishment. So now that you're live, and hopefully things have slowed down a little bit, can you talk about some of the benefits and challenges that you got from changing your payroll technology?
Sure. No, we're rounding out, 8 or so months, right, on the system, and I think it's important for those listening to know we were on a legacy payroll system that had been in place, at least 20 years, right, if not more. It was definitely time for a change. I mean, the organization and our our leadership has invested in success factors, and so we knew this was forthcoming. There were a lot of manual steps involved to what both the payroll and my team were doing on a day-to-day basis, just common tasks, something as simple as retro pay, right? There were things that had manual elements to them. So one of the things that we realized already is just the reduction of some of that manual work. Now a challenge, I would say that anytime you make a change of this magnitude, especially of something that was in place for 20 years, that's just in and of itself going to be a challenge. I've been in my current home for close to 20 years, and I'm dating myself a little bit, but and maybe this isn't something that I want to be that transparent about, but there's a lot of things I haven't upgraded, right? So now that I'm spending more time here, you start to look around and you're like, oh, I need to replace this, I need to do that. But it's a challenge, and it's similar. I see the parallel to making a change with the payroll system. You've got to, if you get new appliances, or I want to change out my flooring, it's the same. You have to kind of, okay, well, what's the best way to do that? And it's the same thing with the system. There's so many, it's so robust, and there's so much functionality now that we're kind of upgraded, right? Really, really upgraded. That's a learning curve. The team, of course, and thanks to our implementation partner, got a fair amount of training. But hey, I look at it this way. I've been working with success factors, for almost 10 years at different clients and different industries, and I still don't know everything. So that's the challenge, the learning curve. But I think overall, the benefits, have far outweighed the challenges. I think our people are happy. Things, again, as simple as filling out tax forms and all of that is so much easier and streamlined. And I think, we're coming into year end, and anyone in human resources or payroll knows that's a busy time. And we're going to see some more of those benefits as far as reporting and, W-2s and things of that nature. So, I'm looking forward to continuing on the path, but I think it'll be a process, right, of realizing some of those benefits, and more to come on that is what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it from a standpoint of not knowing everything. I think that's especially true with payroll. The more you learn, the more you actually feel like you know very little about it. I personally have written books, blogs, articles. I have this podcast, and I learn something new every day, and it's from talking to people like you and others that I do so. So anyone who says that they know it all is definitely lying. I wouldn't trust them. So what are some of the other challenges that you've kind of run across on the day-to-day?
Yeah, I will go back to reporting, right?
Yeah.
So when you've had a system for 20 years, you probably got, we had, I want to say, close to 100 reports, right?
Oh,
and it makes you really kind of, do we really need all these reports? But that's a transformation, right? So the challenge is, at this point, because again, being young in terms of our usage of ECP, it's, well, we need these reports because we've had them, we need them, right? And we've had them for this many years. And so it's like just making sure that we have what we need in place for year end. And then another interesting, endeavor right now is the support pack. So that's Actually, as I speak, our IT team posted an update about that, and it's going well. This is our first time,
Right.
getting a support pack in place, and it's in place in the QA environment, and hopefully, fingers crossed, right? In the next week, we'll be able to move that over to production. But that's also it's a challenge in the fact that we're learning as we do some of these things for the first time. What can and can't you do when you're in the midst of a support pack?
Right.
And that was something that was a little bit of even just this week, just learning some more about kind of, okay, well, here's what we can and what we can't do while we're in the midst of this, and then let's figure out timing and learning how long it takes to get it done, right? And you don't, some of those things you just don't know until you have to do them, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've worked on projects in the past, and going through that first year end is certainly one of the most daunting. But with you all, I mean, considering what you all have already been through, and the fact that you've kind of started working through it, and it seems like you're in a pretty good place. So that's definitely good. I will say overall, a difficult thing is embracing change, right? Getting outside of your comfort zone and trying to do things differently and better than what you did before, right? I certainly realize that an important part of going to a new payroll system is learning the intricacies of it. And like you said, you don't know what you don't know. So, however, with that being said, sometimes it may get people out of their comfort zone, but I think part of that project is question, like, do you really need 100 reports? Like, I would dig into what are some of those reports trying to accomplish, and what's the purpose of them? How
right.
many of them are for the purposes of auditing payroll, and can we change those processes? Can we move those from an SAP SuccessFactors standpoint to the payroll control center to be able to have the system point out those discrepancies instead of some person having to go and look and read a report, right? Move things from a reactive model to more of a proactive model. And I always talk about this, but like I said, change is difficult. And sometimes there absolutely needs to be compromise to give people something similar to what they had, get them comfortable and give them some of those reports and get the information that they need. But to me, it's always important to seek out better ways to do things. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you that, just from our conversations. I know that you're always looking at that, and it's a really good thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if I were going to add any summary points, it would be, if you're gonna have a payroll implementation in the middle of a pandemic, things to have in place, great executive leadership, a strong collaborative team that can do that both in an office and outside an office, right? Because you might have a team of remote professionals, and even if it's not a pandemic, right? And then lastly, just kind of being open to the change and making sure that change is communicated, and that you have that strong implementation partner to hold your hand throughout the journey.
Yeah, agreed. I'll add one more to your list, a great digital transformation leader like yourself. I think that helps tremendously too.
Well, you flatter me. I appreciate it. I was just happy to be along for the ride.
All right. Well, you're being humble too, but all right. Well, thanks a lot for joining me today, Tiffani, and I really appreciate all of your insight, as others will too, I'm sure. So thank you.
You're very welcome, and thanks for having me. I hope to come back soon.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.